Hey everybody, Chris here from It's Mead Made, and today I am painting Thing from the Netflix show Wednesday. I saw this model and I was like, yes, I absolutely have to print this. So today we are going to paint it. So let's go ahead and get in this video. So before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all of these amazing people that have been supporting me on Patreon this month. If you want to be like these awesome people, you will get exclusive access to my private Discord channels and all of my behind-the-scenes content on Patreon. The information's below. Now let's get started. So if you saw my last video, Longer actually sent me their LK4X 3D printer, and I put it through its paces and printed a bunch of different things. But one of the things that was my absolute favorite was this Thing model. So I 3D printed this with orange PLA at a 0.08 millimeter layer height, and it printed beautifully. This was completely support free, and I will go ahead and put a link to that model in the description below. I could not be more happy with how the LK4X printed this. I mean, it was beautiful. And if you want to see my full review of that printer, I'll go ahead and put a link in the up here or here. I always forget which one. Here, it's one of these. So now let's jump to the table and get started on this thing. Yeah, pun was intended there.
So first I wanted to add some wood putty onto Thing himself because I wanted a little bit of a bulge where the cutoff was. And this was where it was sitting on the printer, so it's perfectly flat. So to give a little more dimension to this, I'm adding some wood filler putty onto it and just kind of molding it to make it kind of like a little bit of a mound. Then once I've got it pretty close to what I'm wanting it to look like, I go ahead and I just get some water and put it in a little cup and I just dip my finger in the water. And all I'm doing is just smoothing everything out. I'm still going to have to sand it, but this does help and give it a little bit of a smoother look. Then it's off to the spray booth, and all I'm using is my white Vallejo surface primer. And I'm getting a really nice coverage on this, and it took multiple coats just because I decided to use orange PLA. Then I took my Game Color Paint Hexed Lynch, which is kind of just a darker purple, and I put it in my airbrush, thinned it down, and I'm going around all of the cracks on Thing's hand. And you might be wondering why I'm using purple, and I'm using purple as a base because I'm going to start layering this with the skin tones, and at the end I'm putting a little bit of a red on there, and it's going to make it have a black and blue kind of look to it. So then I'm taking Model Color Dark Flesh Paint and going through and getting all of the wrinkly areas, and I'm trying to start develop some of the shaded spots, and I'm just outlining everything with this specific color, but I'm not covering the whole thing. That's the biggest thing here. I'm just trying to get the darker areas. Then I'm moving on to this flat flesh, and this is just a little bit lighter than the last color. And I'm kind of circling around all of the darker areas that I've done. Now, once again, I'm still not covering the entire model because I want some of that white to show through. So I'm going through and just kind of gradating between the white and that darker yellow. Then I'm taking this basic skin tone and putting this in my airbrush. Now this is the part where I'm kind of going over everything now because I've had my base yellow. Now I'm going over everything with this color. And having those different shades of yellow really helps with the dimension of the skin. And now I'm going to hit the light flesh over certain areas just to lighten them up. I'm not going over the entire model because I want some of those darker areas to show through. So I'm literally just hitting it in certain areas. I'm not hitting the whole thing. Okay, so now we have the skin base all done, and you can see the different colorization on like the knuckles and just kind of looking through. It's not all the same color and it's not consistent. Now I'm going to take this wash from Citadel that is a flesh shade and go in and all the cracks and start to darken them just a bit. And I'm going to just use it straight and use a finer brush so this wash doesn't go everywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a little bit of the wash and just dropping it into the crack and painting the crack. Just dabbing a little bit off, and then I'm going to start fanning it out to get a little bit of a gradation and not that hard edge line. I don't want to just spread it all out. And then I just keep cleaning my brush and pulling away. Then I'm cleaning my brush and just dabbing a little bit off, and then I'm going to start fanning it out to get a little bit of a gradation and not that hard edge line. I don't want to just spread it all out. And then I just keep cleaning my brush and pulling away and letting it come out. Because I'm just spreading it. It's just so there's no hard lines. But I'm trying to let it pool in certain areas as well. Like I don't want to just spread it all out. And there we go. So I'm just going to keep doing this process on all of the stitch lines. I'm going to get some like that. Then clean my brush, get some clean water. And just use that brush and let it kind of spread out a bit. That way it's spread out like you want. So like I'm going back. And if you see any hard lines whatsoever, you just kind of want to get your brush wet again and just kind of rub back over it. That way it's spread out like you want. So like I'm going back and I see it pooling in certain areas that I don't want it. And I'm just going to keep doing this. Okay, so I've got all of the stitching cracks, I guess, or seams all done. And now we're ready to move on to the next spot. Now I'm going to be doing the fingernails. So the fingernails, I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to go ahead and mix this khaki, then I've got a light flesh, and then I've got this bone white. And I've got these on my wet palette, and I'm going to go ahead and just do some mixing, and I want it a little darker here at the cuticle, and then it's going to get lighter. So now I'm going to use the soft tone wash from Army Painter to get around the cuticles to give a little more definition on the fingertips. And I'm just dabbing it with a paper towel to remove any excess that I don't want. So you can see that it gives a little bit of a darker tone to it. It's all about layering. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this gloss top coat on the fingernails to give them a little bit of a glossy sheen. Alright, so now I have the red gore from Game Color and I'm using this light flesh, and I've mixed these together to make this pink color. And What I'm going to do is take my dry brush and I'm just kind of going around the edges, and I'm going to get the knuckles to kind of make them look like they've been, you know, walked on and taken some abuse. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of the pigment that... Oh. And there we go, I spilled that. So I'm going to take some of this pigment right here and start getting his fingertips all dirty. Nothing like making a huge mess when you're making something. I can rub it on real good. Alright, so now I'm going to use some of this Tamaya because it's got a straight black in it. And I'm going to use this little applicator that comes with it. That way I can rub it on real good, just to get some of it even more dark and gritty. Alright, so now we have his dirty fingertips. The last thing we have to do is paint the stitches. And the stitches, I'm going to be using this multi-surface folk art, and it's a satin finish. So it'll have a little bit of a sheen to it, because I kind of want these to look like they're like of a glossy kind of stitch to make them stand out on this matte looking flesh hand. Alright, so I watered down my paints, and here we go. Alright, so the stitching's all done. Let's go ahead and see the final results.
This turned out awesome, and the print just had very minimal cleanup. I couldn't get over how great it printed. But overall, this was a super fun project, and I cannot wait to just randomly set this around the house because my son already says it kind of creeps him out. Yeah, that'll be fun. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.